All right, well, good evening. I first wanted to start out by saying that it is such an honor and a privilege to get to speak to you guys tonight. It is literally one of the things I look forward to most throughout the year of youth group is to get a chance to talk to you guys. But I kind of want to let you in on a little bit of the secret of how this works and like pull back the curtain a little bit. So here's what happens. So Paige and Andrew send out an email that says, hey, would anyone like to give a talk, right? And so I respond with, well, yeah, if no one else wants to give one, you know, if you have an extra spot, I'll give one. So about 2 weeks after that, I get a call from Paige, hey, Jason, would you like to speak to, with the youth group? And I said, yeah, sure. What topic would you like me to talk about? She goes, well, there's only one left. Nobody wanted to do it. And I said, oh, what is it? And she said, oh, it's on redeemed or redemption. And I said, oh, yeah, that would be great, right? And then I hung up the phone and I thought, I don't even know what redemption means. Right? I'm not even sure what that word means. And so, sorry to let them in on your secret page, but that's really how it works, guys. And so, what I really wanted to do then, I thought, well, my wife, she's there, lovely, right, as she is. She says, she's an English teacher, so you know what she would do at this point, right? She would take the word redemption, right, and we'd put it up here on the screen, and there'd be 2 or 3 dictionary definitions of what the word meant, right? And we'd read those, and then she would feel like that she's done her due diligence in explaining what redemption was, right? So we're not doing that at all, because I think really to understand what the word redemption means, you need to think about it in the context of your own life and what it really means to you. And so tonight, what I want you to kind of agree with me about is this, right? That we're not going to talk about what redemption means in the book, necessarily, or the dictionary definition. We're going to talk about what it means to me, and hopefully, as we're talking about it, you guys can kind of learn what it means to you. And I hope that this can then translate over into your small groups tonight, and you guys can begin small groups by just talking about what does redemption really mean to you and how does it impact your life. So about 12 years ago, right, as I was thinking about this, it might be 13, and some of you weren't even born, and most of you weren't really old enough to even understand or do anything, but I went on my first group work camp mission trip, all right? And dude, I was so excited, right? Because Jim Owens and Jimmy and Jeannie and Mindy had been building this thing up for so long. I was like, this was going to be the greatest thing ever, right? I was so excited. I mean, I literally couldn't sleep the night before, and fortunately, we only went all the way to Enid, Oklahoma. Yeah, Enid, yeah. It's a whopping 2-hour drive. So we didn't have to get up that early in the morning, but we went to Enid, and I was so excited. And so, I mean, I can't begin to tell you, I was pumped, right? Because I had heard all these great things and had all these great expectations about what this was going to be like. Well, for those of you that haven't been on mission trip, on Sunday night, right, this is kind of the start of your week. And so you meet together in the gym usually, and there's like 300 people there. And you get into your small group, what they call your crew, right? And so, man, I was fired up. Getting ready to get my crew, and so Sunday night we get our crew and we get together and we're meeting and we start going around the circle and we kind of introduce ourselves and we're starting to talk, and I have 6 8th graders and a 22-year-old co-leader. And I'm thinking, okay, this is awesome, right? Because I don't know any different, right? And I'm super excited. So we're introducing each other, and they're 8th graders, so they don't really talk. My co-leader says nothing, right? And so I'm still excited, right? And then we pull out this packet, and it says the first thing you want to do is ask how many people have been on a group work camp before. Okay, so I asked that, and guess what I get? I get 0. I get no talking. I get no hand raising. And I think, uh-oh, this isn't going exactly like I thought it might. But hey, it's good. Yeah, I'm still excited, right? And so then I open up our work packet. Oh, I don't think I mentioned this to start, but it was really hot in Enid. And when I mean hot, like, it was like air temperature over 110 every day. I mean, like, when we were working on the house, I would turn the corner and expect to see a lion on the Serengeti plain. It was Africa type hot, right? I mean, it was super smoking hot, bad, right? And so when I pull out our packet, which gives you your job description and the scope of your work, it says, you are going to scrape and paint a house and a detached garage. Okay, so I began to think about this, and so I said, hey, I know none of you have been on a mission trip before, right? How many of you have ever scraped or painted? And I got exactly what I'm getting here. Silence and nothing, right? And I'm thinking, this really may not go like I was promised, right? Because Jimmo and Jimmy and Jeannie and Mindy told me this was going to be the best trip of my life, right? Well, so undeterred by the slow start, right? I get up Monday morning, right? I'm super excited. I pile all the kids in the car. I get 6 8th graders in my car. They actually found it, which was a miracle, right? I get my coworker and we drive to our residence, right? And if you've never been on a mission trip, one of the big kind of things is meeting your resident for the first time, right? This is kind of a big deal. And so I'm excited about it. I've been told this is really important, right? So I'm kind of on edge. I'm excited. I'm anxious. So we all go up to her front door and we knock on her door, right? And she comes to the door and she opens it about this much. Anyone ever been like in a hotel where you have the chain on the door? Yeah. And you can only open it about that much? That's literally how much she opened it. And she looked out and I said, hey, we're with Group Work Camp and we're here to scrape and paint your house. And she said, okay, great. And what? She shut the door. I thought, I don't know how this is supposed to go, but that doesn't feel totally right. And so then I started getting the kids organized, and about the time we're trying to get organized, my co-leader pulls me aside. And she says, hey, Jason, come here. I say, she goes, well, I just need to tell you a couple things. She goes, one, I don't really do devotionals at all. Right? And I've never painted or scraped on the house, so I really need you to be in charge of the devotionals, and I need you to be in charge of painting the house too. I said, okay. All right. I said, I got this, right? And so then we start scraping, and if you've ever had the opportunity to scrape a house, it's one of the funnest chores you can ever do. Right?
It's so much fun.
It is a blast, right? It is so exciting. Very, very exciting. I mean, just send chills down your spine kind of exciting.
It's exhilarating.
It's exhilarating. That's an excellent word, exhilarating. I should put that in there. It's exhilarating, right? And so, remember, now it's about 113 degrees, and I've got 6 8th graders and a co-leader who's really, I don't even know where she is, and we're scraping it. So we probably got started about 9, and about 9:47, I look over, and all the 8th graders are underneath the shade tree. And I think, this probably isn't what's supposed to happen. Right? And so we kind of, I don't know, crawled along that day, and we got through it, and we head back to the gym, to the church, I mean to the school where we're having our big group and we were spending the night. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Let me just I'm going to do a little check-in, just kind of check in with some other leaders, see how they're doing, right? And so I'm like, hey, Jimmo, how was your day? Oh, my day was awesome. Our resident was so cool. She brought us homemade lemonade. No, really, she made the lemonade. And she brought it out to us at 1 o'clock. And it was, we were so hot, it was great. And I was like, oh, okay. Another guy chimes in and says, oh, yeah, our resident, she had a cooler full of iced down water, right? And so she refilled it a couple times during the day. Man, it helped us a lot. And I'm like, oh, okay. Another guy says, oh, wait, my resident was even better. She made us homemade chocolate chip cookies, and we did the devotion inside our house in the air conditioning. And I was like, what did I do wrong? I mean, this is my first trip. I've never done anything like this, and I draw a resident that's got the chain on the door. And so I'm thinking, I don't like this very much, right? So I don't know about you, but there are lots of times in my life that I've played the comparison game, where I compare myself to somebody else. I don't know if you're being honest, right? Don't we all kind of play the comparison game? I think that's the first little bullet point in your handout is we all play the comparison game, and I think that's true. And I was playing it that day for sure, right? You see, as a teenager and a college student, I played the comparison game a lot. Anyone ever do anything just because somebody else was doing it? I mean, I might have once or twice, right? Well, that's kind of what the comparison game is like, right? I mean, that definitely happened to me in my junior high and high school days, and I'd love to say that I've outgrown it, but I haven't. You see, because like Jim-O is fitter than me, and Jimmy's more handsome, and Ben's smarter, and Andrew's more fun, and Ryan's more musical, and Sean's just a lot cooler, and Dennis could whip me in a fight, right? And, well, I don't know about Adam. I think I might have Adam. But, right? But here's the thing, right? We all start to play this comparison game, right? And it's funny, God plays the comparison game too, but He just uses a different way of measuring it. He just looks at things in a different way. He looks at what He wants us to do. It's sort of how we start thinking about being redeemed. So the second bullet point in your handout there is redemption, right, at its core, is looking at things in a different way. So redemption is looking at things in a different way. It's understanding how God looks at things, how He does things differently. So, I want you to think about this. I want you to raise your hand if you made a mistake today. All right? You could have missed something on a quiz. You could have spoken ugly to someone. You could have thought bad things about anybody. Right? You could have done all kinds of things. Right? I was looking at a couple of you and trying to make eye contact just so you knew it was you. But, right? So here's the thing, right? We've all made bad decisions today. We've all done things we wish we wouldn't have done. But here's what I want you not to do, is you can't let those bad decisions dominate what you do in your life. Those bad decisions can't impact how you move forward with God. All right, so who in the room has ever asked me, hey Jason, how are you doing? What do I say? No.
Dominating the world.
Dominating the world, that's exactly what I say. So if you say, Jason, how are you doing? I'm going to say I'm what? Dominating the world. Why would I say that?
Because you are.
Because I am, exactly, Alan. I don't mean it like in the Pinky and the Brain, evil genius, Dr. Evil, right? Kind of dominate the world destruction, supervillain kind of way, right? I think about it completely differently than that, right? And I don't mean it to be boastful that I'm doing better than you or being better than you. Right? What I'm trying to remind myself is that God uses a different measuring scale. He looks at things differently in our life. We all play the comparison game. You know how I know we play the comparison game? Right? I'll tell you where a lot of us play the comparison game all the time. Right? It's where the world plays the comparison game. It's called Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Why do those things exist? I tell you right now, I look on there and I go, ooh, I'm better than that one, and I'm not nearly as good as that one. Right? We use those platforms to play the comparison game. Right? The reason I say I'm dominating the world is to remind me that I don't need to play that kind of worldly comparison game. You see, God teaches us His idea about redemption and His idea about the comparison game in Jeremiah 18. And so I'm going to read just the first 3 verses for you now, but listen to what the words say here. Jeremiah 18, 1 through 3. This is the message that came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Jeremiah, go down to the potter's house. I will give you my message there. So I went down to the potter's house and saw him working with clay at the wheel. So there's something really simple yet powerful about what happens here to Jeremiah. When God asks Jeremiah to do something, what's Jeremiah do? Oh, snap. Okay, so when God says do something, Jeremiah, what? He does it, right? I want you to think about that, right? When God says to do something, Jeremiah does it, right? The interesting thing about that is, anybody ever do something different than what God asked them to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know how I kind of know when I'm doing something different than what God is asking me to do? Anyone ever kind of feel it in their gut?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, all the time. Yeah. So here's the thing with Jeremiah, right? He hears God in his head. He knows what God is saying, and he feels it in his gut. And he immediately responds by heading down to the potter's house. Now, this is not a place that Jeremiah goes. He would have no reason normally to go here. But God tells him to go, and what's he do? He goes. Day 2 came at the Enid mission trip. I was pretty disappointed in day 1. No lemonade, no cold water, no cookies. But undeterred, I said, we are going to dominate this. I'm pretty confident that we're going to do great. I'm feeling like that my resident is going to be much better today. I think we're going to connect with her. I know for sure my group is going to start gelling and we're going to see some good progress there. And I'm positive that my young co-leader will really start to get into the swing of this and feel, you know, God moving through her, and this is going to be good. Right? Wrong, wrong, and wrong. So when we knock on the door to tell the resident we're there, she says, oh, hi. I said, yeah, we're here to keep working on the house. And she goes, I don't want to open the door because I don't want to let the air conditioning out. Starting off well. Right? And so I assigned some jobs and some duties, right? And my co-leader, she goes to the back of the house and scrapes by herself. Beautiful. And so I'm left up front with 6th, 8th graders. And I look over about 10:30, and where are they? Under the shade tree. Yeah. And a couple of them are saying, man, it's just too hot. I can't work anymore, right? And so about the time we're driving home that day, I'm saying to myself, Jim-O and Jeannie and Jimmy and Mindy lied. This sucks. Right? Sorry, Jimmy, I know you don't like that word, but it's really hard, right? This is really, really hard work, and I don't really have much help, and I'm not doing too well. My attitude is, it's less than stellar. And I'm saying some things that I shouldn't, and I'm definitely thinking some things that I shouldn't. Maybe about Jim-O, but mostly about my crew, right? Or lack thereof, right? And it turned out that this mission trip was going to be a lot harder than I thought. Right? Sometimes following God is harder than I think too. We find Jeremiah back at the potter's house in verse 4. Really, probably my favorite verse of the thing that we're reading tonight. And he says, seeing the potter, said he was making a pot from clay, but there was something wrong with the pot. So the potter used that clay to make another pot. With his hands, he helped shape the pot the way he wanted it to be. I think my favorite part of that verse is, there was something wrong with the pot. That's on your card. Right? There's something wrong with the pot. Anyone ever feel like maybe there's something wrong with you?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, just like all the time. Yeah, Brandon's got his hand up. Yeah, wouldn't want you to raise your hand on that one, Brandon, but okay. Right? Man, I felt like something was wrong with me on that mission trip. Something was drastically wrong. And I'm going to tell you right now, I was pretty well knee-deep in the comparison game. Okay, really. I was net-deep in the comparison game. Right? Why didn't I have Jim O's resident? Why didn't I have Mindy's resident? Why didn't I have this? Why didn't I have that? I was really ready to probably quit. If there had been an option, like to go home, I would have said, yeah, I'll go. Yep, somebody need to go home, kid not feeling well, I'll drive him. I was ready to kind of chuck it in. But notice what happened with the pot. When Jeremiah had the pot, and he found something wrong with the pot, what did he do? Yeah, he took that same clay, and he what? He reshaped it. I would say right there that Jeremiah redeemed, or the potter really, the potter redeemed that clay. When the pot doesn't take the shape that the potter wanted, he doesn't throw the clay out. He doesn't get rid of it. He simply reforms it into another pot. You see, that's what I think really redemption is about. It's just about getting better every day. That's on your sheet, right? Redemption is really about getting better every day. Each day, trying to be just a little bit better pot. Asking God to help you make better decisions, to love people more, to get less angry and less frustrated. Right? Every day we should be in a battle to be a little bit better. I was not really in a battle to be better on the mission trip. I was in a battle to get out of the mission trip. And then, God showed up. It's funny, I didn't recognize him at first, because he came in the body of a 50-year-old man with a red shirt on, khaki pants, armed with a great attitude and a caring spirit. His name was Dave. He's our site coach. So those of you who haven't been on a mission trip, a site coach comes around once a day and just to check on the site to make sure you're not doing terrible like we were. Right? And so Dave shows up and he begins to be encouraging. Right? He begins to see that I'm struggling a little bit, and guess what he does? He begins to take my mistakes, the things that I'm saying and thinking, and he begins to redeem them. Although I didn't really realize it immediately, Dave was going to change the way I looked at that mission trip, and I look at mission trips today. See, this last part of verse 4 is super powerful to me. It says, with his hands he shaped the pot the way he wanted it to be. You see, God uses the things that we think are weaknesses, our shortcomings. He shapes them where you need to be. He cares enough about each one of you to know what's going on in your life. And he wants to put his hands on you. I've never really thought about this, but we got a hands-on God. He wants to be involved in your life. If you don't believe me, look what he says in verse 5 and 6. Right? He says, then this message from the Lord came to me. It says, family of Israel, you know that I can do the same with you. You are like the clay in the potter's hands, and I am the potter. See, Dave, my site coach, he put his hands on me that week. He changed the way that I was thinking about my struggles. I made a ton of mistakes on that trip. I might have, Jeannie would call it yelling, I would just say raising my voice to a couple of kids and told them if they weren't going to work, just go sit down. Yeah, it says not to do that in the handbook. I also, right, I might have really been pushing hard to finish painting the house, so we might have skipped a devotion or two because we felt like we needed to what? Get work done. Also, not in the handbook. I said some things I regret to my co-leader, and I thought a lot worse. But see, Dave never wavered. He came day after day after day. He took each mistake I made and he turned it into a teaching tool. I'm not even sure how. He taught me so much that week. He turned all my failures into successes. See, God doesn't want us to be perfect. He just wants us to try. And try, and try, and try again. Just like the potter knew there was something wrong with the pot, God knows there's something wrong with all of us. And He's hoping that He can lay His hands on us and fix it. What God is trying to tell me in the story of the potter is that what happened yesterday, what happened today, the mistakes I made, they don't matter. I'm redeemed from those mistakes. Do you realize that the ultimate act of redemption was God giving Jesus to redeem your sins? I want you to think about that for a second. God said, I'm going to give my Son to the world so that I can save you. Every one of you. God traded Jesus so that He can shape your mistakes into something beautiful, something awesome. See, Dave, my sight coach that week, he turned a pretty horrible experience into what I would now consider a pretty amazing relationship. You see, I don't even know Dave's last name. Dave, in my phone, it literally says Dave/Group Work Camp. I don't know his last name. But every year when we go on mission trip, it's been about 13 years now in a row, I send him a text. A text of a picture of all of you guys. And say, hey, we're headed to Mifflinburg. Hey, we're going to Cannon Falls. Hey, we're going, that's all I can remember. We're going to all these different places. And every year he writes back. And sometimes our conversations over text have taken a more serious turn, right? We've talked about his divorce. We've talked about felony criminal charges, financial problems, depression, anger. You see, God used my mistakes, my errors, my frustration and anger, and turned it into something beautiful. He turned my mistake into one of the best relationships that I have. You know, comparing my first mission trip experience to everyone else, my experience was a failure. Right? It was a bad failure. In fact, you know, Sean, last week he talked about failure. And as he did, I began to realize that I failed as a father, failed as a husband, failed as an employee, failed as a youth group leader, clearly failed as a mission trip leader. Everything I've ever wanted to be good at in my life, I failed. But that's not where the story ends. Because God takes those failures and He changes them into something beautiful. Look what He did with Jesus. While the world saw Jesus' death as a tragedy, God saw it as a triumph. God sees things in a different way than we do. God measures things differently. He takes the things that we do that we think are terrible in our lives and He turns them into something magnificent. So as we finish up our discussion tonight, what I want you to think about moving here forward is, what does redemption mean to you? How can redemption change the way you're living your life? I hope that you talk about that in your small groups tonight. All right, let's close in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank You so much for being a hands-on God, for caring about our faults and our failures, and for helping us to understand that You only want us to be a better pot each day, that You only want us to try, that we don't have to compare ourselves to others, that we don't have to live up to anyone else's expectations, but that we only need to obey You. We know it in our gut and we know it in our head when we're following You. And we ask that You help us to do that more and more each day. Help us be redeemed by Your Son. It's in Your name we pray.